We are so thrilled to have Gretchen. It's interesting. We had a breakfast with the mentees from around the world this morning, and I said, do you know who Gretchen Carlson is? They are not familiar with you, but you know, Gretchen, after I'm gonna give
Thank God.
you know, Gretchen landed on the cover of Time in the fall, and what she did so courageously at Fox News last summer opened the floodgates for what we're seeing now, which is, and so let me just give a little background. Gretchen grew up in Anoka. Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Anoka, Minnesota. Population, do you know what the population is?
It's about 14,000.
Well, Wikipedia says 17,000.
Oh my gosh, it's
grown.
Okay.
Population 17,000. The daughter of a car dealer, or should I say car dealers, because your mother was in the business as well, right?
My mother now runs the business at age 76.
That's fantastic. It's a GM dealership?
Yes.
Yeah. 76, that's fantastic. Gretchen was a violin prodigy growing up. That's what you spent your time devoted to. Gretchen went to Stanford, graduated from Stanford with honors, and while she was at Stanford, she was doing a couple of other things, like she became Miss Minnesota, and then she became Miss America while she was at Stanford. And you also spent a year at Oxford studying abroad. Congratulations on all that.
Thank you.
She moved, you know, you wanted to be a journalist. You got into national TV news in 2000 when you went to CBS, correct?
Well, I started in local news, actually, after I graduated. Yeah, back in, well, should we say how long ago that was? A long time ago, 25 years ago.
Well, I'm going to reveal your age because something
well,
important happened.
Yes.
Yes.
No, and we're going to be proud of my age.
Yes, we are.
Like all of us should be.
Yes, we are. So you were at CBS from 2000 to 2005. You went to Fox in 2005. Gretchen co-anchored a morning show called Fox and Friends, which the people who live here in the United States are very familiar with. And then you got your own show in, what year was that? The Real Story with Gretchen Carlson, three years ago. Last summer, last June, you were out. Your show was not going to be renewed. And you left. And a couple of weeks later, Gretchen sued the chairman and CEO of Fox News, Roger Ailes, for sexual harassment. Now, you didn't sue Fox News, and we're going to get into that a little later. Gretchen cannot talk about what happened at Fox News, her experience at Fox News, how it all came down. She ended up settling with the company, with 21st Century Fox. And the settlement, I mean, I'll just say, she's not going to confirm it here on stage, but the settlement was reportedly a $20 million settlement. You had something against them that they were very afraid of. And due to what Gretchen did and the many, many, many women who followed in her footsteps in accusing the senior management at Fox of sexual harassment, Roger Ailes was forced to leave, and other executives were forced to leave. And Gretchen is writing a book that is due out in October called, you say it,
Be Fierce.
So Gretchen, what is your book about?
Actually, the manuscript was due today. So I've been very busy doing the final edits and touch-ups to that.
The manuscript was due today?
Yes.
Did you hand it in today?
I did. I was on time.
Good.
Yes, I guess that comes from my studious past. But yes, I did turn it in today. Now it will go through some, high-powered editing and legal vetting. And it'll be out on October 17th, so I'm very proud of that. I actually had just written my memoir about 20 months ago, and I promised my family and myself I'd never write another book. But then again, I didn't realize I was going to jump off a cliff by myself on July 6th of last year either, with no safety net below. So what really encouraged me and inspired me to put this together was all of the thousands of women that I heard from after my story became public. And it was really overwhelming because they found me. whether it was on my website or through other connections, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And I started compiling and printing off all these stories from all of these women, thousands of them, and they were in stacks in my office at home. And I was like, holy crap, every woman has a story. And we live in 2017, and why is this? This is outrageous. And so many of them said to me, you are our voice. We are voiceless. And through whatever victory they saw that I had, they felt victorious. And I knew I had to do something with that. And I knew I had to try and tell their stories too. And that is what the concept and how the concept of Be Fierce came to reality very quickly. And the interesting thing, Patty, is when I went back to them and said, you know, I'm going to put together a book. Could I use your story? And almost all of them said, would you please? Would you please be the first person to tell what happened to me? And they felt comfortable with me. It was almost like this instant connection. My life has worked in very mysterious ways. If you just heard my resume, and from violinist to Miss America. And by the way, I was a chubby kid, so that was never on my radar screen. It was my violin talent, 100%, that got me to that level. But this is another, way in which my life has worked in an unusual pattern. But the one constant in my life has been that I never, ever give up. And when a challenge is before me, I do something about it. So I never expected to be the face of sexual harassment by any stretch of the imagination. But when I found myself in that role, and I started hearing from all these women who needed me, this became one of my life missions.
So what did you not know about this issue until it happened to you?
A lot. I mean, I think there are many stereotypes out there that we probably all can relate to. First of all, if you're a woman and you speak up, you're a troublemaker. It's not just about sexual harassment, it's about anything. But specifically on this issue, you're a troublemaker. You feel alone. You wonder if it's only happening to you. I think that we find strength in numbers, so if we knew that it was happening to more than just one person, probably more of us would speak up. But it's also the mechanism in which we are allowed to speak up. And I'm writing extensively about this in my book with regard to, is human resources really the right place to go to? Because what I always equate it to is who's giving them the paycheck? And in the end, if the culture is being set from the top and it's trickling down to the lower levels, human resources maybe isn't looking out for you. So I offer different suggestions in my book about, some new ways in which we might look at this to inspire more women to come forward and to stand up and speak up. And by the way, the book is not just about sexual harassment. When I moved to New York City, in fact, my first apartment, I can see it right over here, so it's very nostalgic for me tonight. But when I moved here, my friends who already lived here from Stanford said, well, it's location, location, location. I was like, no, I just want the best deal. And then I found out how true that is about New York City. And the way in which I've described the last 10 months of my life is timing, timing, timing. Look at what's happened with women in our nation over the last 9 months. We feel galvanized. We're marching. We're coming together. We're saying enough is enough. And it's not just about sexual harassment. It's about every way in which we feel like we've been put down or subjugated. And whether that starts in elementary and middle school where your kid is being bullied, or you get to college and there's date rape and sexual assault, or then you get into the workplace and you realize, wow, I'm not paid equally. Or, wow, I really wish I did have a place in the boardroom. Or, wow, I really wish I would be promoted into that position. So the book is really about speaking up in any way in which you feel put down. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's timing, 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 that we're sort of in this spirit right now where women are feeling powerful.
Which is a good word. We were just
is.
talking
I know.
at the table about the word power, and it is a good word, and what Robin Roberts said about we all have more power than we think we do, you showed that. You are showing that. Gretchen, one of the things that sounds arcane on the surface but is very important, and I know you're writing about in your book, is this issue of forced arbitration that is in many employment contracts. And I would kind of guess that many women, or maybe most women in this room, don't even know if I have that in my contract. Explain this, and because Gretchen can't talk about the Fox situation, but this is why she actually could not sue Fox News. She could not sue the company. So what did she do instead? She sued the boss. She sued Roger Ailes. Explain forced arbitration.
So it may be in the fine print of your contract. I advise you to take a look. Actually, it's in many, many contracts that we sign every day online, like when you sign up for your cell phone service, or even Netflix or something like that. And if you're like me, you can hardly wait to check the box to say I agree and move on. But the problem is, when it's in your employment contract, it's really, really crucial, because what it means is that you're giving up your Seventh Amendment right for a jury trial if you ever find yourself in a dispute at the office. And let's be honest, when we sign a new contract, we're not thinking about that on day one. We're thinking, wow, I have a new job and I'm so excited and I want to just bring home my paycheck. And we don't envision that we're going to find ourselves in a situation that's precarious and that we might need a jury trial. And the problem with forced arbitration is that it's secret.
Explain what the arbitration court is. Basically retired judges who take cases and take them in secret. I didn't want to interrupt, but yes.
Yeah. So they take them in secret, and the idea is the employer will say that this is beneficial to the employee because it's more cost effective and it happens more quickly than the court system. But the reality is that only 20% of the time does the employee actually win arbitration cases, and many times when the same group of arbiters are on the same company cases, they tend to find in favor of the company no matter what the evidence is. So the other huge thing is the secrecy. So let's say that you have a work dispute, it automatically goes to arbitration, and you can never tell anyone about it, ever. You can't tell them if you won or lost, and the end result is you don't work at the company anymore. So if you find yourself in a sexual harassment situation, many times the predator keeps working. And you're gone. And you can never tell anyone what happened to you. I mean, I had 2 friends in my community where I live now who used to be on Wall Street, who after my story broke, told me privately that had happened to them. I never knew that. They'd only told their husbands. So this is an advocacy part of my mission right now, in trying to get bipartisan support to at least try and take away the secrecy aspect of this. Because right now the pendulum is like this. Here's you as the employee. But at least if we could bring it out of the shroud of secrecy, maybe we'd be on a little bit more even footing. So I've been to Capitol Hill.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yes, it is. Right? It is. But here's what I tell people: sexual harassment is not political. When somebody's going to sexually harass you, they don't ask you beforehand, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? They just do it. And for anyone who has daughters, nieces, granddaughters, friends, special women in their life, we should all care about this issue.
So I emailed Anita Hill yesterday. Anita Hill, who in 1991 opened the floodgates for this issue in a really powerful and effective and inspiring way. And she said, ask Gretchen, she said, so many of the women in the most powerful women community, Anita said, have daughters who are derailed before they even get their real start, and they're even subject to a contract where this issue of an arbitration clause might exist. So what is your best advice to the daughters of these most powerful women?
Oh my gosh, somehow we have to encourage all of the young people and all the middle-aged people that we have to agree that we're going to stand up and speak up together. Because if it's just one or two of us, we're not going to make as much of a dent. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is we need men. We need men to help us. And I'm dedicating an entire chapter of my book to what I call enlightened men. And these are men who reached out to me very publicly after my story broke. It's also men that I've come to find out about from speaking across the country who are doing amazing things to benefit women in the workplace.
So Gretchen, as you've interviewed men, what is the difference in terms of background or life pattern of the enlightened men and the enablers of sexual harassment?
So the one common thread that I've found from these men is the way in which they were raised. And whether it was a single parent or, you know, a mom and a dad or a divorce situation or whatever it was, it didn't matter. It was the role modeling that they saw growing up. And if they saw a strong woman, and if they saw, in some cases, a man in the relationship that respected that strong woman, then that was, you know, that's how they formed what they thought about the world. And you know, I've often said that in being a working mom, I have a daughter who's 13 and a son who's 12, and I've said that I work more for my son, actually, because I want him in 10 years when he gets into the real world to respect his female colleagues in the way in which he respects his mama right now. Mm-hmm. And so for him, I find it's crucial. In my book, I'm asking parents to take a pledge. You know, let's take a pledge all together to raise especially our sons in the way in which they're going to respect their female colleagues. Because until we get men's help in this mission, it's not going to change. And by the way, the burden should not be on the shoulders of only women. We need men in this equation. And as long as 95% of the Fortune 500 companies are still run by men, we want them and we need them. We need them to help us on this path.
Do you have any interest in going back to TV?
Of course.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. Have you, this question is from Billie Jean King.
She almost spit up her water there.
I also emailed Billie yesterday, and we didn't think Billie was going to be here tonight, but she couldn't resist us. So the question from Billie is, have you witnessed any backlash or discrimination as you've thought about getting back into your old field? And emotionally, how did that impact you?
Have you looked at my Twitter feed? Listen, yes, there's been backlash, some of which I can't speak about from that part of my life. But I know from looking at my social media accounts that we have a lot of work to do. So that inspires me. As for emotionally, what's kept me going is my kids, which, look, when I made the biggest decision of my life on July 6th, the only thing I cared about was the well-being of my children and how that was going to impact them. And that's a huge decision to make. So on the first day of school, when my daughter went the day after Labor Day, it happened to coincide with the day that my resolution was announced. And one of her teachers asked her to come up to the front of the class and explain to the kids what happened to her mommy over the summer. And when she told me that when she came home, I thought, wow, I'm really not very happy about that. But almost instantaneously, she said, and Mommy, she said, that made me feel so proud. And a couple weeks later, she had a couple girls that were bugging her. And she came home from school one day and she said, "Mommy, and I told such and such this, and I told such and such that." And she said, "And I saw you do it, so I did it, Mommy." And in the end, that's all that matters, is what my children think about me. And if I helped to empower my child to be a stronger woman in this world, and my son to see what I did, then it was worth it.
It was worth it.